And we're on. All right, welcome to the Reefing Report. I'm Terence, and Mark, Mr.
Mark Kelly, saltwater tank here with Terence.
There you go. All right, well, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to have a great show tonight, something super important that we're going to talk about. We have another great guest, Mark, that's going to come on the show, and some good stuff to talk about. Thank you, all of you guys, for joining us that are out there. Some of the regulars, you know, Jonathan Gordon's out there, Kevin Erickson's out there. Look at that, huh? Kevin Erickson's out there. Okay.
Kevin Erickson. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen the sombrero on the United States soil.
I know. We better be on our best behavior, huh? But all you regulars out there, you know, Battle OCR, all you guys, you know, thank you for joining us for another weekend of opinion on what happened in reef keeping for the week. As always, out there on reefingreport.com, you should check that daily because there's anything that's going on in reef keeping that's kind of the hot topic. That's where you're going to find it. But you'll also find us out on Facebook and YouTube. So we hope you guys give us a like or a pound or whatever it is they do these days, those kids. Yeah. So Mark, what's up with you lately?
Oh, just getting ready to do some traveling and show off some tanks. And, you know, just watching the news, big news this week on two big fronts that we'll talk about. Absolutely, these two topics have dominated the saltwater aquarium world this week. So we're going to dive deep. We have a guest speaker, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited to talk about this. Get the tanks cranking behind me, Terence. I'm turning down my calcium reactor because the corals are growing. Terence reminded me off camera last week that my corals are small and don't need trimming. So
I was coral shaming. So
yes,
well, only because you created a post that you're like, oh yeah, I'm breaking out the coral saw because I've got too much coral in my tank. I gotta like trim it and thin it out. And I'm like, huh? Where?
What I meant to say, and since this didn't get across clearly, is let me clarify. Is that I'm getting to the point in the tank where I'm starting to recognize corals that are repeats, and I'm like, oh, I need to take that out so I have room for something else. I've got a whole frag rack of SPS over there, so I've got to take stuff out, thin stuff out to put other stuff in.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I don't have a tank behind me today because I'm out on the road. I'm here in Southern California, not far from where all the fish come through, to be honest, but I'm really in the San Fernando Valley. Our guest who's going to join us in a second is spent some time in the San Fernando Valley, I think, if I'm not wrong. And today we're gonna be talking about how they're going to take away our fish and corals. But without further ado, I'm going to bring in Richard Ross, the man behind all the octopuses in the world. Oh, wrong one. Oh no, I ruined it. There it is. Richard Ross is going to come in.
He runs an octopus escort service.
An octopus. Welcome, Richard Ross. Are you there, buddy?
I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I can. I got a little lag on your audio for whatever reason, but maybe that's just me in the way that I'm seeing it. I'm hoping it's all coming through correctly. But welcome back to the United States of America, Richard. You were on a little journey recently, right?
Yeah, I was on a atoll in French Polynesia, and that was pretty great. And I just got back yesterday, so all this news is very exciting to me. I do want to say I'm excited to give your show a pound. You asked for people to give you a pound, so I'm going to make sure I give you
a pound, whatever it is they call it, the kids these days. But I appreciate you doing that. And no hat today, by the way, guys. Did you notice? And no product in the hair. So yes, I do have hair. And Rich, how's yours doing, buddy? Is it all in the back?
My hair's good. It's I just cut it. Can you see me on the sides there? I just got home and cut. The beard was crazy. Everything was crazy, and I just shaved everything.
Did you see the image I used to promote that like one with the glasses and everything? It was so sinister looking. I had to use it.
That was one of my evil genius. I want to have an evil lair is what I want. I want to be a Bond villain.
Yeah, well, speaking of villains, that's my segue into what we're going to talk about, which is the people who are trying to take our hobby away. Night and day, they're doing it. They did it already to some extent with our Hawaiian species, right? They were successful there, at least for now, right? And they're going to try to do it everywhere that they possibly can in some of the most sinister ways. The latest one right now is a brand new bill that just passed through the House, pretty much on party lines, that contained a provision in it that it confused people a little bit because they kept saying it's an amendment. It's actually an amendment to the Lacey Act. It's not an amendment that they kind of slipped in. It's in the actual text of the of the bill, which basically amends the Lacey Act to add a whole bunch of new provisions. The worst of which is that any kind of species coming in, like all the ones that are in our hobby and whatnot, instead of them being blacklisted as something that can't come in for invasive species, or believe it or not, some people had actually supported this because of coronavirus, if you can believe that. We should talk about that in a minute. But basically, instead of a blacklist of what can't come in, basically everything is blacklisted immediately. And then if you have it on a whitelist, then it can come in. And it also bans all of the interstate travel of these species. And species that might be considered invasive, in Florida, might not be invasive in Seattle, but yet it's a national ban across the entire United States of America. So that's kind of the crux of the whole thing. And it passed. It passed through the House, and now it's on its way to the Senate. And
then it's got to pass. And if it passed, go ahead, Mark. It's your show. When you guys are on Reefing, then I'll talk first.
Okay.
Shameless plug. I love it. Well, I would add to that part of this is people like, okay, no big deal. We get stuff on the whitelist. Getting stuff on the list, got to go through a review process. Not an easy thing to do. And then some people out there are saying, well, no big deal. We have captive bred. It doesn't differentiate between captive bred or wild caught. The species, if it's a species or not, it doesn't matter. It would be on the whitelist. It would be banned until it's proven innocent, which I can guess how long that might be.
All right, Rich, you can go now.
Well, we don't really know anything about this yet, right? So nothing might happen, or some stuff might happen. So it's hard for me to talk about that because the language of it is kind of loose from what I read from it today, and but it could be bad. And my kind of insta takeaway from the whole thing is this is all our fault, and we've been talking about it for at least 15 years.
Amen.
And here we are yet again, with people gnashing their teeth and clutching their pearls and having the vapors that this could possibly be happening to a hobby. I'm Southern for some reason. And we've known this is coming. We've been talking about this forever. That if we don't get ahead of this, we're just going to continue to be reactive. And if we don't make ourselves look good, no one's going to do it for us. We could talk about, other organizations like the Sierra Club or whoever, and oh my gosh, they don't support us, but why the hell should they support us? We need to support us. So I'm a little, flippant about the whole thing at the moment, both because it's still kind of fresh and we're not quite sure where it's going. And the one group we have, PJAC, is asking us to kind of hold tight till we know a little bit more so they can kind of direct us on where they think things should go. But other than that, my feeling is, yeah, this is our fault.
Yeah, and I know you feel that way, and I agree with you in that respect, but not in part of it. And I've got camo on today because we need to go like action, and not action where people are taking action. I don't think people have taken the right approach so far, which is the people that are trying to take this stuff away are the Sierra Clubs. They are all of these other these nonprofits and political action groups, and all of these groups. They're not standing by the wayside, hoping to help something else. It doesn't matter to them, many of them, if it's if it's sustainable or if you're doing your own breeding. They don't care. It's evil that you're keeping little animals in boxes, and they're going to take action. And they've got money, and they're going to take action, and they're going to go after it, and they're going to go after. This is the other thing too, is that the text in this particular bill, it's not brand new text. It actually went in a bill last year. That was co-sponsored by both Marco Rubio out of Florida because of the invasive species stuff, but also out of Brian Schatz out of Hawaii, who most likely originated. I'm still trying to track it down where the origination of the text came from, but it just doesn't miraculously appear from these politicians. These politicians get these chunks of text from these groups and say, we will support you, we will support your campaign. It doesn't matter if it's Marco Rubio. It's not an R or a D problem. I'm not trying to get political here, but it is how the sausage is made. And if we're not going after those people, and by going after, my opinion, and then I'll let you guys take it, is that means you need to, first of all, recognize where your money's going when you're giving it to these nice sounding places. And I'll show a couple of them maybe in a few minutes, but, Animal Welfare Initiative and the, Earth First, whatever. And these people are going after the hobby. And so you're either going to be part of the hobby, and not cry if they take it away, or you're going to do something by not giving them money or even going commando on them and going after them. That's how I feel.
I think, it's the same thing that me and Andy Ryan and Kevin Erickson and a bunch of people have been saying for at least 15 years, since the dissolution of the MAC, the Marine Aquarium Council. It's like we need a body that is looking out for the hobby, trade, and the industry. I make the distinction between the three things.
I agree.
And without such a thing, we're just asking for a government to do it for us. And, there are some nefarious players out there. I agree with you with that. And there are some who aren't. There are some who are just looking at the situation of the world and going, we need to do more. And the information they get is not from us, because there is no us. These people are not going to go on a forum to try to get the latest information. That's not how that works. We don't have a mouthpiece that talks to them.
I disagree that they care about the information. They don't care about the information because they want to have. They don't want to see animals in boxes. The SPCA doesn't want to see animals in boxes. PETA doesn't want to see animals in boxes. The Sierra Club doesn't want to see you collecting fish out of the ocean in Hawaii. Period.
Yeah. Well, so I agree with you. Some of them, for sure. Some of them don't. Some people would like to have an intelligent discussion about it, but they are not getting any of the information because no one is there to give it to them. So we can't even.
Sure.
All we can have right now is a reactionary discussion. But, I see in some of the comments over there, what can we do? Right now, throw money at PJAC. That's pretty much all you can do. There's nothing else. We don't have anything else set up to be able to do anything except write letters.
Well, I'd say to begin with, get the word out anyway and not contribute to these groups. That's absolutely something you can do. If you're already, think of how many people in the hobby for, maybe it was 10 years ago, were contributing to Sea Shepherd because it's a cute little great cause to save the whales, okay? The same guys who went against us to take away the fish out of Hawaii, okay? And I think that you're absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, yes and, right? It's a yes and kind of thing that we've got to look at very closely at what we're supporting and then also voice to everybody else in the hobby, don't support these groups. In fact, let them know that you're absolutely not going to support them because they work off of money as well. And we're not small.
Well, I think
especially
that's
with Reptile, especially with Reptile, freshwater.
They're all in the same boat as we are. And I think us not giving those groups money is a drop in the bucket to them. They don't care. So that feels like a feel-good kind of approach. Don't give money to Sea Shepherd. And there's nothing wrong with a feel-good approach except that it may not get you the results you want. And you and I can disagree with it. I think it's great because you and I are friends and we disagree on so many things.
Absolutely.
It's great. I love it. I hear I was on a live stream with Mark Levinson a while ago where we talked about this very thing, that there is no one to represent us. And, getting the word out is problematic for us as well, because I've already seen complete and utter hogwash about what people should do about this bill.
Right.
Being put forward. There is no, we don't even have a phone tree to say the storm is coming. We've got nothing. All we have is social media, and there's enough out there that's nutty that even that's not trustable for us to organize around. So
Mark, you got something on this?
Yeah.
So Rich is taking over the conversation here, so I want to make sure he doesn't do that.
Well, Richard was making
Not that
a good
I ever
point
do
that,
that.
like, there's no way for us to get our word out. And looking around social media, as Richard was saying, at other places that could even be sharing the Coral Magazine article, which I think was well written, I did not see any of the big players in the industry posting about it, sharing about it. It was completely silent. Some of them have put out posts since then about different topics, but there was no talk of this.
Well, not only that, Mark, but the Senate one came out last year. Did anybody hear anything about that? I didn't.
No.
I
did.
didn't. Well,
Nope.
I did.
why did you let us know
Who-
then? What's wrong with you?
Who? I did. No one listened. Who are the big players? What does that mean?
So,
what is
big retailers? I mean, look, bulk resupply has said nothing about it as of yet. Reef Builders has posted
Right.
nothing about it as of this. Like, those are arguably the two biggest players in the industry. And not to toot our own horn, but we were posting about it as soon as we saw it. And it's like, why? Going back to what you're saying is we don't have a voice. We don't have a unified voice. We're not even paying. Maybe some people aren't even paying attention or don't care about it. They'll be like, oh yeah, it'll just go away, which I think a lot of the hobby at this point has been like, oh yeah, another one of these blip on the radars, but it'll just go away. I'm going to look at my tank.
yeah.
So I'll just jump up and say my thing about the hobby of the trade and the industry. I don't think this is a hobby issue. I think this is a trade and industry issue. I think hobbyists yelling, we want to keep animals in our living rooms is not a compelling argument for these people. I think, and I think hobbyists, by and large, right, don't have any skin in this game. The trade and the industry have skin in the game, right? If the hobby goes away, the bulk of hobbyists go on and get another hobby. The people who are making their living on this, they lose their jobs. So I think,
But they are votes.
while
But
the
they are
hobby-
votes.
While the hobby can be harnessed, I think, let's have a grassroots efforts and have hobbyists, get involved in this. We try that a million times and it never bears any fruit. Mostly because I think the hobby that is actually involved in issues like this and keeps up on it is maybe 10 or 15% or maybe 20%
It's for sure.
of the
It's very
hobby.
small.
So, asking those people to shoulder the burden for this doesn't make much sense to me when the people who are making all the money on it, I think they should be more involved.
It's twofold, right? So the people who should be
Yeah.
organizing the effort are in the industry, but the people who are actually the hobbyists are powerful, okay, because they have numbers, okay, and so they absolutely have some power. Look at this. They thought I'm in a bunker. Look at that. Derek thinks I'm in a bunker in Iraq. That's so funny. These people.
I think you're in a bunker in Capistrano.
Southern California.
Nope, Northridge. I'm actually in
You're in-
Northridge. I'm actually for those that know, I'm actually right near Devonshire, okay, and Tampa.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I
Okay.
am.
Go over into Canoga Park and go to the fish store where I started everything.
Aquarium
of my
City.
life there. Aquarium City.
Yep.
Go say hi to them.
I know all of this well, and we can go on and on about that. But Jeremy Meadows just said a very important thing, and this is probably going to piss Erickson off. But why hasn't Mazda said anything? And I know where Rich is probably going to go, but I'm going to let him go in a second. Just to hang on, hold that thought, because I know where you're going. Because they are not the right mouthpiece necessarily to do this, and that's where Rich is going. However, okay, I would think that they would at least be on top of it. It's not that it's the power that we need to make this work, because Rich, I would totally agree with that, but it's like, it does seem to me like something that would be, if it's the Marine Aquarium Society of North America, be a big deal. I think this stuff goes under the covers far too long, and it is not recognized by people. And 100% I'm behind Rich on the industry has to, take the effort by the horns and create a council. The problem, and I'll throw this over to Rich or Mark from here, is there is such disagreement in a small number of ranks of people in this. Like you have myself, who I would be the kind of person that would be, I want to go in the jungles of Vietnam with these people, okay? That's what I want to do, okay? I don't care about the data, okay? I care about taking them down, and there's ways to take them down, okay? other people like, we got to collect data for like, 7 years and figure out, exactly what this, and then we present the data to them, and then they're all gonna just want to go, oh yeah, it's all good. And so there's all these different ways of approaching it, and I think that's where getting a consensus, even in the industry, is really hard.
I'll let Mark talk because I don't want to be accused of taking over your stream again.
Well, I think as we had plenty of data in Hawaii, and we presented that data, and it did make a difference because it's popular opinion, and you can whip up a frenzy and share one side of the information and make it look really great, which wouldn't surprise me if this happens with this one. Some anti-aquarium people are like, oh, look at these aquarium people trying to stifle innovation in America, because that's what the overall bill in a way is about. We're not talking about is the bill right or wrong, but it's about creating semiconductor factories in America and jobs, et cetera. So then it's easy to flip it and be like, oh, these aquarium people are against America type of thing. So the data would be great. I'm all for more data, more transparency, and you can present all the data you want. As Rich has said in the past, it's not a data argument, it's a moral argument. Then you get it into something totally different.
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely think there's just so many different factions on this, but you take a look at, I just pulled up here on the page, you guys may not see it through your thing, but I pulled up USARK, which is the U.S. Association of Reptile Keeping, okay, which has got the best kind of day by day on this America Competes Act, which was created to basically allow us to go head to head with China with all the evil stuff that China does, and it is evil. From stealing our IP to not doing stuff with the environment to the semiconductor industry, all of these different things, and this is what they've put it into. But they've got a day-by-day update here, and to Rich's point, this is an organization that exists for reptile keepers. That is something probably that we need to have something similar to that. Is that what you're thinking about, Rich?
There's one starting. Some people have gotten together. I don't want to say too much about it because it's not my baby. I'm just kind of been talking with people about it. The Aquarium Trade Organization, and they're trying to put together a website for us, like this ARC website, and hopefully it will become something else.
So John Gordon just posted up, said the Aquarium Trade Organization, and so my question with that is it freshwater and saltwater? Is it only marine? Is it?
Yeah, well, here we go. So I would imagine it'll be only marine because that's what we do. Trying to bite onto another group that we don't know anything about, and it's just going to diffuse our efforts. And I did want to touch on the MASNA question. Everybody always thinks there's an organization that already exists that should be doing something about this. And MASNA's mandate has got nothing to do with this. MASNA will catch up. And when things are clear, MASNA will have statements and information about it. But MASNA does not exist to defend the trade.
Sure.
MASNA is not a political organization. MASNA can't lobby about stuff like this, actually, or MASNA loses its accreditation or its tax.
Can they inform?
Status.
Can they inform?
They can inform, but there's nothing really to say yet.
Looks like the U.S. ARC here informed us without telling. Yeah. I mean, before they even got to action. They informed us of what's going on. They informed us of what we can do if we want to take action. They didn't take action, but they at least give you the information. I'm sorry, the average hobbyist is not going to understand the nuance that you give. The average hobbyist who supports MASNA and who goes to MASNA events and whatnot is going to have an expectation that, like they're informed at a MASNA event or even on the MASNA website about other things, that they should be on their game, and this should be at least in front of people in that respect.
The U.S. ARC has done a very good job of cranking this stuff out in a short amount of time. In a way, I mean, Brymac is on the comments is making a point that they're a lot more plugged into this stuff than us. In a way, it's humiliating to watch, but at the same time, it's like this is a good model to watch.
100%.
So what Mark just said is what we've been saying for 15 years. So it's super embarrassing to me that we don't have anything in place yet. It's unconscionable to me that we don't have anything in place yet. We've seen this be nibbled at. We've been called to the carpet for this over and over and over again. And hopefully what will happen is, and I think US ARC is a different kind of organization than MASNA is anyway. But what'll happen is, hopefully, this will calm down. It'll fade away, just like the last Lacey Act, the Vincent Act of the Lacey Act that was 10 or 15 years ago. And it'll fade away, and then everyone will forget about it again until, oh my God, the sky's falling and they're coming to take my fishes.
Yeah, so to be clear,
my right to have fishes.
To be clear, I know we disagree on a lot of things. On that one, I agree with you. This particular piece of legislation is going nowhere in the Senate. I'm just telling you right now because of everything else that's in it. It's such a honeypot of things that it's. The Senate has Senate 1260. I believe it's 1260 has a. I think it's 1260. The Senate has a version of this that they already have over there, and that particular version does not have that in it. Okay, yeah. Look at this, the beefing report from Aaron.
Aaron, I love Aaron.
The beefing
Aaron just
report.
got a new tank. We have to go set that up.
But the Senate already has a version of this, and so they're going to try to reconcile this together. And the fact is that there's so many other provisions. Nobody really gives a shit about this one as far as the rest of the Senate is concerned. And in fact, probably the people who stuck it in there did it so they could get their money, where whether it's Shat or whomever else, and they put it in there knowing, absolutely it's never going to go anywhere, just so they could get it in there, and then it's going to get reconciled out. But to your point, the fact that, then we're going to move on and we're not going to do anything, you're 100% right, but there's a source for this stuff, and it's not the senator, it's not the, it's not the House person, it's the organizations that are out to go after us, period. They're hell-bent to go after us, and my point is that, number one, you can't support them, number two, you should go after them. That's it, because they are the ones who are creating this nightmare for us in the hobby. And I hope that people do get together and put together an organization, hey, I'm unemployed.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. Everyone, it's nice of your staff to give you so much gin on the air. How people talk about how big our hobby
Bourbon.
is. Right? Do you know the relative numbers between the marine aquarium hobby and the U.S. reptile hobby? They have to dwarf us.
I've heard people say that, but I will also say I don't know. I don't know I can tell you from the marine aquarium hobby, there's obviously two sections of the marine aquarium hobby. There's all of the stuff that we do, which is like personal marine aquariums where we care about them, we have them in our homes and stuff like that. Then there's all the commercial stuff. It's in hospitals and clinics and all of those other things. Of the ones that matter in the trade, as far as like, let's say bulk reef supply, et cetera, maybe there's 400 to 800,000 sites, right, around the U.S. I'm talking about the U.S. that have marine aquariums. I will then say that I would bet that they're a little bit more involved that, as a percentage, like maybe, and this is all just out of my ass, right? But 50% of them are like kind of much more involved than, say, 80% of the reptile group who just go buy, customers I'm talking about, not the trade. They just go buy a leopard gecko for their kid, right? It's kind of like,
right,
very much like the guppy hobby. So while theirs might dwarf, and I don't know what they are, I would say that they're less engaged percentage-wise as the marine aquarium keepers.
Yeah, I think so, but I think they have way more money and resources than we do because they're so much bigger than we are. You can't go and get a leopard gecko. You can go and get a leopard gecko for your kid right now. You're not going to go and get a reef tank for your kid right now. You can, on a whim, go get a leopard gecko. And I've been to the reptile shows in my area. They happen a lot, and they're friggin' huge.
Yes.
The amount of new tanks, new enclosures that are sold that day are unbelievable. So
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is their engagement of the individual with their whatever it is, I believe is a lot less. And that does matter, right? In terms of, again, if you want to have power, but on the reptile side, I bet most of the reptile dollars are more focused in big box than they are elsewhere.
But but the money all still funnels. Is got ways to go to a catchment system to be used for things like the U.S. Ark and stuff like that. We don't maybe we'll get that now. Maybe we've been banging the drum long enough and had enough red flags thrown up at us that something will happen. So at least we can have a position on it and have something set up. So when it comes up, we can say, you know what, that's not right. The other part of it is that the reptile people are way ahead of us in cleaning up their own house than we are. Their house is way cleaner than us in terms of imports and trying to skate around it. And, they don't have that. They don't have that many people that say you can take my lizard with my cold dead fingers. They're just, I just ran out of words, so I'll stop talking.
No, I understand what you're trying to say. I think the challenges are not only different, but I think there are a lot more in the marine aquarium side because of the way that animals are kept, bred, captured, the quantity of species that we're talking about, the
data,
the emotional. I know the data, the emotional aspect of going out into the pristine reef and taking something out of the pristine reef, and all of that is much more difficult to defend than the the ugly reptiles. I mean, that's...
they went through this already. The bulk of reptiles are not in the trade, are not taken out of the wild. The bulk
I understand. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 90% of our animals come from the wild, and it's very easy to point to major screw-ups that make us look really, really bad.
100% agree with you there. No, there's no doubt. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there
but I think
go.
I think some of that also, you talk about, involving the trade. I think, again, back to the hobbyist side and what they can do. A lot of that leans back on the hobbyists too. And I get that they're not going to be engaged and not want to do it as much, but informing them, again, maybe through some, a more organized group. For instance, probably laying out all your dead fish on the counter and taking a photo of it, probably not so helpful. Probably not so helpful.
Well, yeah. And that's what I mean. We just got to get on the same page here and go. And if we can't show that we've somehow, tried to put our own house in order, we're going to lose.
I agree. Mark, you got to get in here, man. People are saying, Mark, you've fallen asleep on the live stream, buddy.
I'm listening. This is...
That's too funny.
No, I think Rich hit something.
That's why Mark was
reptiles
asleep.
The reptiles of people have already been through this. Great. Then why aren't we talking to them about what happened? What did you do? What did you learn from it? As Terence always reminds me, someone else has already had your same problem. Go out there and find it. Yeah. I mean, if it's hobbyists right now, if it's an organization that's coming together or whatever, just go get it done. Find out what happened. And we can communicate with them, especially if there's that many more of them, as people are pointing out in the comments. Use them as an example instead of us running through it and running it amok and falling down on our face. We can learn from them, and let's go do that, whatever that looks like.
It brings me back to my basic point. There is no we. We're just individual
all right. So
people.
look, the three of us. We've been saying this. I haven't been saying that for 15 years, but let's say it's all fair to say you, me, and Terence have been saying the same thing for 5 years. And let's be honest, what have we done about it to make it us or a we or anything?
I've done a lot. I can't speak for you guys.
Oh, look at him. Talk about unzipping and swinging it out. Okay.
If we want to call the industry out on it, what are we doing? Let's start with us. And so, look, part of it, as a hobbyist, I got back into the saltwater aquarium hobby about 2008, 2009. I remember the first bills being threatened out there, Hawaii stuff. And it's what do? I don't know. We can write a senator or representative, which is great. But then it's all right, I don't know if this is good or not. Hopefully it goes away. And then 2 years later, as you said, Rich, it's back. And it's what can we do?
Well, I think the people who are involved in the new motion are sick and tired and are actually going to make something happen. So I think if we're lucky, we're going to get a we out of this, and that'll be huge. You know, 5 years ago, I think it's 5 years now, I wrote a love letter to the hobby and trade and industry,
Mm-hmm.
and with 10 things, and this was one of them. That this is coming, we need to do something. And so I was a public aquarist and a researcher, and now I'm an independent researcher. I I don't know what to do except use whatever small platform I have within the industry to keep saying things about this. I don't. It is. It is not. I'm not going to go start an organization. I've done stuff like that before, and 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 boy, oh boy, starting when when the Mac ended, it wasn't pretty. It was nasty. And this hobby has the potential to really shred anyone who puts their neck on the line.
That is
Right?
that
They
is so
get
true. You're 100%
completely.
correct. You're 100% correct.
So
And the only way it really can happen is not little local fish stores or little manufacturers trying to organize to get something together. It has to be the big guys. It has to be the Seagrass. It has to be the ORA. It has to be the BRS. It has to be the saltwateraquarium.com. It has to be the Neptune Systems. It has to be the Ecotech Marine. It has to be these guys to pony up and say, you know what? We're making $38 million a year, or we're grossing $38 million a year, or $22 million a year, or $16 million a year. We need to set aside $160,000 each of us towards this organization, and we're going to go pick a key couple of people who are going to run the organization, and we're going to set up some bylaws that are the key bylaws for it, and we're going to tell everybody about it and why it's important and why they need to support it too, and why, guess what, there's going to be a sticker on every product you get that says your purchase just donated 25 cents towards the SaveTheHobby.com. By the way, I own that URL, just so you know.
it could be any hobby.
It could. That's why I bought that particular SaveOurHobby.com. So,
So look, if we could get money, stuff could happen very quickly. Getting the money has been hard.
It's easy.
But things
I was
things
going to
take
say,
time.
how has
So
that been hard?
it's easy.
It's
and
hard because you've got nerd scientist dudes doing it, okay? That's the problem, okay? You got a bunch of guys who want to put up poster displays, okay, who are going around looking for money, okay? And that doesn't work because you're looking at it from a science perspective. When you look at it from a, we're going to change the world and we're going to go after these mofos, and we're going to make it so our shit don't stink. And by the way, if you are doing things in the hobby that are wrong, and you're using fishermen that are using cyanide, or you're collecting fish and bringing them in and letting them die in a box because your staff isn't there at that time, or whatever it is, we're going to out you, and you're not going to exist, and you're not going to be part of the consortium that gets the special sticker on everything. And that's how you
I'm
do
all
it.
for it.
That's how you do it.
I'm all for it. That's
But
what Mac tried to do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly what Mac tried to do.
But the
So,
problem is too, Rich, is like I've said, is people are afraid of pissing off friends and everything else, okay? There's a whole bit of this in the hobby, okay, that goes there. It absolutely does. And you need, the only things that work are guilt and shame, which doesn't exist a lot in this world anymore, but it works amazing. Guilt and shame works awesome. That's why religion's so popular, Rich, you know that.
I do.
That guilt and shame works. And when you have a book, at every local fish store that shows people illegally doing things and doing it wrong and naming the people that are and saying these people aren't, and you're going to pay 10% more, then there you go. But you're going to have to throw some people under the bus.
Yeah, well, look, Rhett Talbot was doing work along those lines, and could not
Along.
get anyone...
There's nothing against Rhett, but along those lines.
No. I used the word along because that's what I meant to say. You don't have to redefine the word again. But Rhett got shredded from inside the industry and the trade, and Rhett couldn't get any money to pay for the basic, not even profit for himself for doing investigative reporting. He couldn't get money to get flights to go to places to do interviews. And whenever it came up, it was like, how much does that cost? And he would say, and people would go, well, why don't you just do it for free? And it's like, well, why don't you give me a frag of, my granny's I want to be PG, and it's very hard for me. If we're selling euphyllias for $500 a damn head, what the hell is wrong with this hobby and industry that we can't get it together to pay for investigative journalism and organizations that protect us in the future?
Jeremy very astutely said something which is absolutely the case. You need closers to bring in the money, you need executives to run it, and you need scientists to give you the data. And he's
100%.
so spot on. He's spot on. And the dilemma
100%.
with a lot of these things, a lot of the things in the hobby is you've got scientists trying to be marketeers, scientists trying to be executives, scientists trying to be salespeople. It just doesn't work, okay? They just need to be scientists, and you're talking about manipulating people's perceptions of things, okay? They're doing it pretty well in some areas, but for the most part, scientists should not be doing that.
Well, but they're the only ones who've cared enough to talk about it over time. So,
okay.
I don't want to talk about this crap. I got a bunch of stuff to do that I'd much rather be doing than talking about this.
Yes,
I'd rather be
sure.
driving to you to do another skimmate than talking about this. But here we are again, talking about it because it could end everything. Yeah. Is Mark still here?
Yeah, Mark's still here. So what Mark is trying to say, Rich, is one of the people who pays him needs to pony up some money. Okay, BRS needs to pony up money. Bertram needs to pony up money. Ecotech needs to pony up money. They need to pick somebody that they can hold accountable to a certain set of ideals and goals and things that they want to get accomplished in order to do it. They need to do it in a way that they're not trying to support cats and dogs. By the way, cats and dogs, there might be people surreptitiously in cats and dogs that are trying to undermine this business, okay? Because it's money. It's all money. And so, it needs to be directly marine oriented. Even some of the enviros out there that are anti-marine and anti-Hawaii and everything, some of the research I've done and the things they've written, they love the freshwater stuff because it's for the rainforest and we're preserving the rainforest and all this other stuff they talk about. So the freshwater stuff actually has a whole lot of cover compared to the marine stuff, which is stolen out of the pristine, beautiful reefs. Well, Mark, talk, Mark. Hold on, Rich. Mark, talk.
I've got to do my segue thing here because with the other big topic of the week.
Don't segue yet. We're still on this one. I'm sorry. I'm gonna. You need to comment more on this topic, okay? I'm vetoing that segue yet. We're only 42 minutes into this, Mark. Okay. We're gonna get to boring salt.
Oh, now Tropic Marin would roll over if you said that. Hearing that, Terence, or Sean and Fritz be like. You go back to offending people, which is what we were talking about earlier, why this doesn't get done.
Oh, okay.
So look, okay. We've established we need a better organization. There needs to be funding behind it. The hobbies can get into it too. Yes, Mac, probably would have been great if it had continued, but it hasn't. Okay, great. Now we need to go do it. So next year, when we were talking about this, let's bring Rich back in a year and check in and see where are we, what have we done? So we're not like, oh, yeah, we were going to do that. We were just waiting for another blow up. And then we'd be like, oh, yeah, remember we talked about that? It's on YouTube and Facebook on our stream, but we've done nothing.
So let me ask you, and we'll move on from this. I'm going to ask, because this is, I think, one of the things that gets in the way for a lot of people with these kinds of things. Let's say that you were able to get money from these big companies, okay? And let's say you needed to put an organization in place. And let's just say that you need 3 people at that organization to kick it off, okay? How much resistance do you think there's going to be in the hobby, okay, which does matter because it is influence and they are influencing the people who are then giving the money to support this thing, okay? If, say, the head of that organization makes $195,000 a year, the second person that's there makes $110,000 a year, and the other third supporting person makes $80,000 a year. I'm thinking there's going to be a whole lot of pushback, okay, in terms of people who are going to go like, oh, they got some person there that's making like $200,000 a year. That's part of the problem with this, is that people don't understand really what it takes to really do something well, okay, and to get real talent out there to do something well. And then they get all caught up in all of that, right?
What I've said for a while is...
Then pay them.
Oh, well, yeah. What I've also said is that it's going to take somebody with $1 billion of their own money to fund this and not take a salary, because people need to eat, right? And what we're talking about is more than a full-time job, and it's got to be paid. And when Mac tried to reboot, they got shredded for, among other things, this very issue.
Right.
And the idea that people who are doing, I mean, we see the thing in Masna, and oh my God, that organization, everyone, so many people should be getting so much more money to make those events happen, because it's unconscionable that these things happen from the good of people's hearts over and over again. And it starts at the Reef Club level. When I was one of the founders of the Bay Area Reefers, I was like, pay for stuff. Stop begging for someone to update the website. Hire somebody. It's just a waste of everyone's time to try to do it on the cheap. And it won't get done well. And then you see it in 1 billion organizations in the hobby, in our hobby, that they try some database gets, customized for free, and then that person leaves, and then all of that's gone.
Yeah.
And it happens over and over and over again. So I'm 100% behind you. People need to get paid. But it is a divisive thing, though. It is a wedge that happens right away, because, as I said, even if the people who are writing the checks don't mind, the BRSs, the Bertrams, whoever, they understand what it takes to get talent, right? As soon as that trickles down, because it can and it will, to the average guy, then the average guy is starting to feed it back to these organizations and whatnot, like, oh my God, look at that. But the fact is that that's what it's cost. If you want to have you want to have somebody who knows how to do something and to get results, you're going to have to pay for it. There's no way around it. And that's just the way it is. When this came up 10 years ago and someone said, Rich, you should do that, I was like, I can't afford that. I can't afford to do that.
Well, and because the best people, right, whether you're the role that I had at Neptune Systems or whatever, the best people, they're working 24/7, okay?
Yeah.
They work 24/7. They're always on, okay? So they're always on. They're always on their phone. They're always wherever. They're always available. They're always whatever it happens to be. And that doesn't come cheap, okay? And that's what you need to have in order to tackle, certain things and do them with that kind of gusto. But now, Mark, you can segue if you want to. Because
one more thing. I just need to piggyback on that. And you wonder why perhaps Masna doesn't have this on their website yet. You've answered your own question.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Mark, transition us to talk about clay, because that's really interesting.
Oh, well, now, Richard Ross, Mr. Skeptic, let's look at the data. The other big news story of the week is the Tropic Marin Turkeygate debacle, which was some users claiming that the salt that was produced out of the turkey plant for Tropic Marin destroyed their reefs. All of a sudden, the tank started STNing. Everything was gone because they used a bucket or maybe less or maybe more of this stuff, which goes back to a lot of the anecdotal evidence in the hobby, which you've talked about. We've written some great articles about. I recommend people read. Where do we believe with this stuff? Where do we draw the line? Tropic Marin has come out and said, hey, we're going to stop production out of Turkey, which is great. I have to commend them on coming out there and putting out information. They're not just sticking their head in the sand hoping it goes away, like the hobby likes to do in other topics. But, I mean, you've kept up with this a little bit, Rich. People say, oh, I changed salts and all of a sudden everything got trashed, or there's residue in my mixing vat and then it killed everything in my tank instantly. What's your take on that?
So, Rich, are you up to date on the whole saga, or do you need a refresher?
Yeah, I was underwater for 2 weeks, so just give me the.
Okay,
30.
so I'm gonna give you the finer points on it. So, Tropic Marin, like 2 years ago, started being marketed by BRS as an amazing salt, which it's a really great salt. It dissolves very cleanly. It's a very nice salt, but that is a key component of that salt is that there is no real residue from the salt, and they've been using it there at Bulk Reef Supply for some time. Obviously, because of the marketing engine from Bulk Reef Supply, it created a huge demand for Tropic Marin salt out there in the industry. All the local fish stores started eating it up as well, because obviously they feed off of the BRS marketing. And then they needed to what I would imagine is expand their capabilities, which probably pushed them into Turkey to be able to do that out of Germany. And sometime late second half of last year, some of the salt that was coming in from Turkey was starting to leave residue in the tanks. In fact, Randy and Ryan did a video where they were talking about where they kind of noticed it like last year, but they didn't really think about it, and nobody really caught it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Come now to the beginning of this year, people notice it, Tropic Marin sees it, BRS tells them something's going on, they start investigating it, they think it's not anything to worry about in terms of harming the animals, but in fact they do have a problem in Turkey. They stopped the production in Turkey, only coming out of Germany now, and they are offering up for people, I guess, refunds on their Turkish salt. And the BRS site is now only selling also the German salt. And that's where it happens to be right now. And there hasn't been a report yet of what exactly the material is, but it's being claimed that it's clay-like and whatnot. There are some reports out there in social media that people's tanks have been crashed. But as you and I both know, we both are kind of skeptical on this, that you can do a 10% water change and then all of a sudden with some salt that's got some residue, have this issue without having it be a widespread thing. But that's pretty much it. Go Rich.
Well, first, I think the first thing is people think this hobby is bigger than it is, and they think it's like Apple, and their salt mix is goes through 50,000 checkpoints and is tested by the Oompa Loompas at every second. It's not like that. The hobby is big, but it's not that big. So there is that. People really need to get that in their mind. The second thing is Tropic Marin has come out and said, hey, not only have they said, hey, oh boy, maybe there's a problem. They've stopped production at a facility. That's everything we want out of a company.
Absolutely.
I use them to top off. I use natural saltwater, but I use them to top off and have for a long time. And that's been one of my one of the salts I've liked. But good for them. I think, if every company in our hobby acted like that, we'd have a much better hobby. So huge kudos to them. We do get this happens every 15 years or so, that there's some salt issue, and that people have problems.
Every single salt has gone through this.
Yes. Yeah. So is it happening? Is it not happening? I don't know. I think Aaron, actually, who shouted out before, had an issue that seemed to be to this salt last year. So, is it possible? Sure. If we had, I've always dreamed of there being a Reef Busters organization. So, and if there was such a thing, you would send them your bucket of salt that you say killed everything, and they would actually try it and see if they could get an LD50 on it and recreate what happened. Clearly not with a full reef tank, but, with some captive bred clowns that are going to be culled anyway, ethically and all that kind of stuff. But that would be fantastic. And unless we start doing that, we're just going to hope that tropic companies do what Tropic Marin did and go, oh yeah, there is something going on there. Is it really happening? Well, maybe. It's really just hard to know what's really going on because there's no way to follow it up.
Mark, you got any feedback on this?
So it's an interesting point. Rich is talking about this. That's Mythbusters, to borrow a great show. I mean, we do the same type of thing in the reef world. I've considered that on my own, doing that type of thing. And back to what Rich was saying earlier about getting kind of blacklisted or shamed or shredded. It's a small industry. Unless hobbyists were supporting the show, then if I came out and said, hey, this salt, we did a test and it killed this clownfish, then what manufacturer is going to want to support you? If that manufacturer was sponsoring you, then you're dead in the water. So I think it would be a great idea, but unless hobbyists were funding that and it was 100% transparent, you're buying it wholesale at retail and showing your receipts, do we think hobbyists would care enough to do that? Because you're never going to run that model on a sponsorship because you can never say what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's ultimately a big issue that I've seen, obviously being at a manufacturer for some time, and people wanting to be honest and truthful, not be shills, not be people wanting to help the industry, but not real. I mean, the hobbyists, sorry, not the industry, wanting to help the hobbyist, not really being able to. It is definitely a thing, and it does go back to money. Rich's idea of that kind of Mythbusters thing, it's money. Why are you going to do this? I mean, Is it a hobby to test these things? No, it takes time and effort, and there's not a whole lot of.
The first one that I knew of was Inland Reef did a study of the Eco Aqualizer. Right?
Okay.
Right? And I'm sure I talk about it in some of the
For those of you who don't know, it's basically a piece of pipe with some black
magnets.
tape and magnets on it, and it's supposed to clean your water.
Yeah, but they did more than that. They actually did some tests, right? It's easy, simple tests, and that was great, right? When ICP testing came on, we did Chris Maupin and I wrote up a thing where we sent a standardized certified sample to be tested. And, that's great too. And there's people doing this here and there all the time. But, we got so much crap for that thing that we did that it was like, why did we do this?
Right.
Why am I going to stick my neck out and do that if I'm just going to get ripped apart for an article that basically said, yeah, this is kind of okay.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I mean, I just wanted to hit a couple of questions here because they're coming up, Rich. The first one is from Jameson Brosau. I wonder if the margins are better on Tropic Marin versus Instant Ocean. Look, I don't know exactly how that works at BRS. I don't have that inside information. But I can assure you in general, okay, that there's going to be an intersection with a great company like BRS and with Ryan, who's, I consider him a good friend of mine. There's absolutely, no matter what you want to think, there's going to be an intersection between something that works really good and something that gives us the best margins. That's just a fact of business. That's the way it's going to go, and that's what you can expect. So, that could mean that Instant Ocean has a little bit better margins than Tropic Marin, but he knows Tropic Marin is so much superior in his opinion and his testing to Instant Ocean that he would go that way. Or it could be a situation where you have a product and maybe Instant Ocean and Tropic Marin are so close, but maybe Tropic Marin does give 5% more and it's more or less the same. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but those things absolutely do enter into the conversation, and to think that they don't would be, completely foolish. I think there's one other question on here too.
I see one that I like if you want me
Go
to
ahead,
take
Rich.
it.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Patrick says that if dog food was contaminated, it'd be on the news and there'd be uproar. Salt contaminated, who cares? Even though animals are involved. Well, there's a couple things there. And I think that really points at one of the major issues with this hobby and one of those is we eat fish. We don't eat dogs and cats. So
Mostly.
What?
Mostly.
I mean, Terence and I eat dogs and cats, and Mark watches. But that's problematic. It is hard to get people to care about some fish that died because, you can go on Facebook and see any fish charter nailing live fish to a board for people to pose with.
Right.
So it's a little
or
bit
giant
weird.
nets full of shrimp, or whatever. Yeah.
So
and that's okay.
It's tough. It's tough.
Right.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, it's like we were saying before, it's hard to pin down what actually happened to these animals.
Another comment here was, if anyone comes close to being reef busters, it's BRS. I would agree to an extent, but you have to understand again that they clearly have a motive, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a total profit guy. They're not going to come out and find something and shred some company on what they find. They're going to try to get it resolved first and try to figure out what the issue is and everything else and try to get it taken care of. Not to sweep it under the rug, but to benefit the hobbyists. I do believe BRS absolutely thinks first of the hobbyists. I don't think any other thing than that. But at the same time, there's an intersection with how does it work with the business? How does it work with us keeping our suppliers happy and everything else? Because that's just the way it works.
Yep.
Sure. Absolutely.
So here's another one too. David Trong says needs more traceability on salt batches. Okay. So one of the things I said last week, and that I've mentioned to people, Rich, on this, I would like to get your take on this, is I think every one of these salt manufacturers, because of the reason that you said, which is there's such a small amount of this happening, there's not going to be putting a ton of testing and traceability and all these things into it that cost a lot of money and overhead for them for probably what is not a great high margin product due to its weight and shipping and everything. The best thing as a hobbyist you can do is buy as much salt as you possibly can at one time and store it as much as you can possibly afford, because then you'll be getting it all from one batch, and it's either going to be all bad or it's going to be all good for a long time. If you're buying, a bucket of salt every couple 3 months, you're just from a math perspective, your chance of getting a bad batch of salt is going to be much higher.
So, Terence,
Yeah.
speaking back to the
Yep.
business side, I would say a competitor salt manufacturer sent an email this week to their customer base and said, hey, every single one of our salt batches is ICP tested. And they had a form where you could put in your name and your email address, which is smart marketing. And then you could type in the batch name on your salt and pull up the ICP results so you could see them. Now, they did those ICP results. There's some people going to say, well, it's not transparent. Well, because it's their results, maybe, but that was smart marketing, I have to say, from a business standpoint. And there's some level of that. You could go out there and see it.
Yeah,
So if you
I
had
don't
a
think it's
batch,
bad.
You could do it. No,
mean-
I just thought it was interesting. That came across my email. I'm like, oh,
Sounds like
these
something I
guys
would
are
do.
paying attention. These guys are paying attention. And if some people wanted more traceability, maybe that's it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it looks like is ICP on each batch. And then you can go and look it up. For example, I used to work in the animal science industry. And one thing those guys back then were saying is, I've never checked this, so I don't know if it's true, but I was told that in Japan, you can go and scan a barcode on a steak that you buy and pull up the farmer and see where he is and see his ranch where that animal was raised. So
You're going to
maybe we
get
that
Rich
kind
all
of
wound up on
transparency.
this, man. You're going to get Rich all wound up on this.
It's all great. I think it's fine. That's all good stuff. We should have that. But if the metric is, boy, that salt's expensive, well, then you're not going to get that kind of traceability.
Right.
Right. I mean, you get what you pay for. We can't. Well, we can, but it's so weird that we want everything to be as cheap as possible, but perfect and fantastic, and we want our butts covered, and those two things just don't go together.
Cheap, good, and fast. Pick two.
We bought a Kia, and I was talking about the self-driving. This was 4 years ago. The self-driving stuff. I said, this is pretty good, but on the Tesla it does that. And the guy goes, well, this isn't a Tesla. And it's like,
Right.
well, yeah, exactly.
There you
right.
go.
If you get what you pay for, and if you're driving the market of the hobby to have cheap, inexpensive, then you're not going to get traceability on your salt.
And the reverse of this is
Yeah.
actually what Ryan actually said in the video that's linked off of reefingreport.com, by the way. You should go there every day. Is he said people bought Tropic Marin as if it was a Ferrari or Lamborghini, okay, of salt. And the reason that there's so much hubbub about this is because they paid the money to get the Lamborghini and it had a Hyundai engine in it in their minds, right?
Right.
And that's where the disconnect is for a product. Once you've become that premium product, you now have to at all times. And kudos to them too. They are communicating really well. I know I did see one comment on here which I laughed at when I say I got to pull it up here. Don Swanson said, I brought this issue up on AskBRS on Facebook. Lou replied. Lou is the head of Tropic Marin, and lashed out at me saying, Tropic Marin was perfect and it's a problem on my side. Can't wait to see Lou at Reefapalooza. And I just kind of laugh because I don't know if you guys have worked with German companies before, but this is very indicative of German companies. So I'm even more happy that they have taken the approach that they have, because it's not a German thing to do what they're doing.
Hello, German company. Yes, I plugged your pump in and it caught on fire. It must be your electrical system.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, I've got to tell you the aside, the comment of me with I had the calcium reactor. Oh, the really good one? Anyway, it had an Aqua Bee pump on it. Okay, and Brad Seifus has the same one. It just ate the pumps up like crazy. And so I happened to be over at Interzoo, and the guy from Cove came over and was talking to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, our stuff, we're using the thing. I know the guy over at Aqua Bee, right?" And so he pulls me over to the booth. He said, "You got to go talk to him." And so I talked to the German guy. He's got he's an older guy, the guy that started Aqua Bee, right? And he's got his translator there with him, right? And I start saying, I just, want to let you know I've got this, pump, and I've gone through 2 or 3 of them. It just seems to be eating it up. and she translates to him, and the great translator, right, always uses the same like inflections and everything. And I was very nice about it, right, to start with honey, right, and he immediately goes into, is very animated and everything. And then she in English, right, is translating to him with all the same, stuff about how, well, you're not even supposed to use that pump on that calcium reactor. I'm like, well, yeah, but I bought it, with that. What's the German company anyway over there that makes, what is it? Anyway, it's irrelevant. But
the Destaco reactor?
No, not the Destaco. The one
Deltec?
that was, Deltec. Thank you, Deltec. So it was a Deltec calcium reactor. And he's like, well, you should not even supposed to use that pump with a calcium reactor. I'm like, you've been selling them to Deltec for a while. It's like, well, they shouldn't be doing that. And he was just like, one after another of how this wasn't their problem, And I was just like, it's so great. But so kudos to Tropic Marin, to coming out.
So.
And, I will say that some of their comment that they had, which, said that we have no evidence that these clay minerals causing the cloudiness are harmful to the animals. Yeah, they don't have evidence that they're not either. So, I mean, it's nice that they said that, but it would be good that they do come out with a little bit more information, because there are things in some of those clays that can, they may not be toxic in 120-gallon water change or something, but they can build up in your aquarium, things like aluminum and whatnot that you can have. So
Maybe not.
no, absolutely.
Just, hard to know.
Exactly. Yeah. But
So
the
they're
internet
more-
is getting some piling on of people whose entire reefs and mushroom collection and bounce mushrooms and everything all died, and yeah, there's a lot of that going on already.
Yeah. Well, that happens every time there's a salt issue. So you were saying about hoarding salt, essentially.
Yeah.
That's what I would buy a pallet of salt or whatever, just so I didn't have to deal with it.
That's
and then
me
be
too.
grumpy
Yeah.
when I had to buy a new pallet of salt. So
That's how I buy deodorant, by the way. I buy like
But
8
li-
bars
yeah.
of deodorant just so I never have to think about having deodorant.
that's how I buy camouflage vests. But let's be honest, this is a rarity.
It's not a vest. It's a shirt.
Yeah, whatever. The salt's going bad and causing problems is a rarity.
Yes.
So, how much do you? It's a risk assessment thing again. I think it's a very small number of times that this happens. If you get hit, oh yeah, it's gonna suck. But what are you gonna do? I mean, you could go to the store right now and get some romaine lettuce and get Ebola. It's part of the world.
I agree with you, and I'm not saying
things
that
can happen.
I'm not advocating it. Everybody should go do this. I'm saying if this is a real concern of yours, because it's not a super concern of mine, and I will absolutely admit to you that my reasoning for doing it is more along your reasoning than the other reasoning. But the fact is that if this is a super concern for you of like salts not being the same all the time, whether it be because of contaminants or the levels or whatever it may be, buy a huge amount, as many as you can at once, and then you'll be guaranteed with some consistency across time.
Yeah, and stop looking in your mixing bin and getting worried that you see some stuff in there.
Oh, I know.
Just
I
get
know.
over that. Don't worry about that.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I would add to that,
100%.
Terence, that if you buy a whole batch, which I think is great, it's a good idea, mix up a batch, send it off to ICP, and going back to how Rich thinks is how I think as well. Send off 4 ICP tests to different companies and compare your results.
Oh,
And
please. And
then-
then they're all different. And then they're all different. And you're like, what the F? They're all different. Which one do I pick? And so you
But
send
as
4
Rich
more
would
out.
say,
We've
it's not
we've
about
all been in
getting
the
them
hobby
all
long
the
enough that
exact same.
we can taste it and we can tell.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
And I think reef automation.
I snort
those
mine,
vests
Rich.
that-
Rich,
those
I snort
vests-
mine. I don't even
You
mix
snort
it up. I just like that, and I know.
And make sure you go out and you roll your barrels of salt so it mixes and yes,
I did a
and
show
yes,
on that.
reef automation. Terrence's vests do come with fanny packs.
Oh, God, get out of here. Please. Well, this has been a great stream, and I've really enjoyed Rich on this stream, and we're going to have you back again. Maybe in 4 or 5 weeks we see some more stuff about this HR 4521, where it goes in the Senate and whatnot, have another discussion. I do welcome also, anybody who is working on this consortium of people. If they want to come on the Reefing Report, contact myself or contact Mark, and we have a tips line at the top of the webpage that you can do that. Once again, I wanted to give a shout out to, we have a new Patreon member, and his name is Chuck Admire or Admire. If you're really cosmopolitan, you would say it's Admire, who just donated to us through Patreon. Thank you very much, Chuck. And we are going to have some things coming up on Patreon that are going to be pretty cool. So again, you can go out to the website, click on that link, and donate through Patreon. Oh, look at this.
Awesome.
He's got swag already. He's like showing off his Reef Beef swag.
Mark was a guest on Reef Beef, and his show was the #1 viewed show until recently. So we'll have to have him back on and see if he can be awake and if he can get that title back.
Well, Rich, I can tell you are already the #1 for us. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, baby.
And look, Rich, if Terence still worked at Neptune Systems, you know what he would be pointing out right now? He would say the #1 most popular Mr. Saltwater Tank episode was when I talked about an Apex, and he will say that every time he can. So thank you for being our #1, Rich. You now join the club of #1s.
I am now a shill for the Reefing Report. I'm sure someone will call me that, and that'll be fun.
Oh, Ben just chimed in. He's watching. Look at him.
Ben's
Finally, he's only an hour late.
There's Ben. There's Ben right there. Ben.
Oh my gosh.
I got my hand over him.
There you go. Well, we definitely appreciate it, Rich. And
this was really fun. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I do think it's an important conversation. And the fact that we had it, and that a few months ago I had a similar one with Levinson. It's happening more, and that's all I can hope for, because eventually it'll stick. So thank you guys for talking about it.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, till next time, next Sunday,
Thank you,
obviously
everyone.
join us for another episode of the Reefing Report, where we go over what's going on in the week. We'll see what happens this week. Please go out there and share this live stream with everybody out there in the industry if you can, and hit the page likes and all the other buttons you're supposed to do to get our numbers up. So pound it. And till next week. Thank you so much for joining the Reefing Report. Any other words, guys, before we close out this one?
No. Thanks for
All
being
right.
with us, Rich. Have a great week, everyone.
Yep.
Baba
Take
Booey.
care.